are not the catalyst to someone else's healing. You are not the individual who gets the permission to say that people connect with you, get better, and leave you, and that's just how it's supposed to be. That is actually you coming to a resolved conclusion based on sadness that's wrapped in fear. Because truth is, you're sad and disappointed that out of the lengthy relationships you've given a try, it hasn't worked out. So you've landed thinking that God has given you an assignment to be connected to people to only help them get better, as if you are no longer available for long-term love from other people around you. What we have done is we have grown tired. You are actually very, very tired of giving people a chance and giving people a try. You are becoming very, very, very fatigued. And the simple fact that relationships just don't work out. They just don't work out. It doesn't matter how loving you are. It doesn't matter how much your love may challenge them to do better. It doesn't matter how kind and consistent you are, the transformational love that you feel you walk in. It just seems like every guy, every girl, every person walks away from you in the end. So what we naturally do after seeing something, experiencing like that for a lengthy of time, is our brains begin to compute, our nervous systems begin to communicate in a form of dysregulation, that because of this level of disappointment and because of this level of unmet expectation and heartbreak in the end, that in order to prevent from experiencing this level of disappointment to such a degree again, we just need to believe in some way, shape, or form that we are meant to help others move forward, and we are not meant to actually experience the love that others who get connected to us but then leave us later on somehow find in the end. And you know what? I'm okay with that. And I just really want to challenge that and speak to that, because you're actually operating from a place of hurt, from a place of pain, from a place of sadness. Because truth is, you actually want that kind of love. You want that kind of long-term love. You want somebody who gives you their undivided attention. You want someone who chooses you and doesn't actually place you as a second, third, or fourth option. You want somebody who invests in you as much as you invest in them. You want somebody who can actually share in the transformational love that you're walking in. And it's just hasn't happened yet. And so it's extremely sad. And so first I want to acknowledge how heavy that is, because that is a heavy place and location to actually arrive at. But I want to speak to this because 1 Corinthians 13, Paul addresses something that I want to share with you, that in the lengthy of conversations can actually spread nuance to what it really means when it comes to being graced, to being connected with people. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4 through 8. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Here it is. Love never fails. That love never fails part is so challenging, because throughout the entire tenure of this conversation, a glimpse of a conversation that we get with Paul to Corinth, who is operating in an abundance of things, one of them being their gifts without love, Paul looks to correct them. And how Paul corrects them is by calling them up to a mature level of love that they cannot forget to operate in when walking in their gifts. Because without love, it's meaningless. But the implicit that is given in the last line, love never fails, actually insinuates that because God is the greatest love in the form of Jesus Christ, that this love is actually a love that cannot fail when we are moving and operating in said love. So when we are living in a godly love, the love that's given and the love that's experienced isn't a failure. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well then why did the relationship end if it's not a failure? Why did the divorce happen if it's not failure? Why are we no longer on speaking terms if it's not a failure? And I want to reframe how you think of failure regarding this connection and relationship. It's not to say that because the relationship ended in a breakup, ended in separation, that the relationship failed and the love failed. If the love that was moved in was a godly love and was a love that was available to be received and therefore reciprocated, again, in a godly love that ultimately would allow the relationship to function properly. Somewhere along the lines in the connection between when you got connected with them and when the relationship ended, somebody somewhere got off track with such godly love that always has an agenda in mind to preserve the heart of Jesus. And preserving the heart of Jesus does not look like becoming somebody's mat. Preserving the heart of Jesus does not look like people pleasing. Preserving the heart of Jesus does not look like trying to put on PowerPoint presentations to convince other people why you should be chosen. Preserving the heart of Jesus does not look like putting your peace in the hands of others, claiming them to be your peace. I want to be his peace. He should be my peace. Those kinds of things. Jesus is never really interested in that, nor is God's love interested in that. But God's love is always hanging on himself, who is the eternal sufficient being, self-sufficient being. And because his love is everlasting and is the greatest, it's what ultimately fulfills us. And because this is a love that fulfills us, this means that any other love we experience outside is additional, not necessary. Now hang on. Since this love is additional that we may experience among one another, and it's not necessary because we are already fulfilled by the greatest love, then this should open up a window to see not only the importance of loving with an open hand, but should also give us the glimpse that loving somebody cannot fail when we love in a godly way, because at the end of the day, the goal always is to preserve the heart of Jesus. When people encounter you as a believer, they are able to experience Christ through your life. That's a win. Therefore, it's very difficult to come to a place where you believe that your time has been wasted. So then you have to ask yourself, why do you believe that time is wasted if the relationship doesn't end up in the way that you hoped and you've been moving in said love? We have to go back and address some of these beliefs that have curated thoughts, that have then curated emotions, that are then curating behaviors. Because your crash out tendencies through the rejection and the breakup ultimately proves that the love you thought you were giving wasn't love at all. Your desire to begin shelling up, creating heart blockages because of so many rejections and breakups, shows that the belief about love is in some way, shape, or form being dwindled and is dwindling away because of the amount of experiences you're having that don't seem to come into alignment with what you're reading and what you're receiving about God and the love he offers. So because there's a conflicting battle, you're oftentimes wanting to come to a conclusion on what you see, what you hear, what you've experienced more than what ought to be the central alignment in our lives, that being God's word. So instead of coming to the experiences and filtering that through God's word, we are actually having these experiences and forgetting God's word. I'm trying to bring you back to speed on what Paul is essentially giving us. That this love that never fails doesn't mean the relationship itself won't have an opportunity to reach a place where it's no longer present. This love never failing actually gives us an opportunity to see that even if this relationship does not last, we can actually become okay. Because how we're loving is through an open hand, not needing this relationship to reach a specific destination, and being able to be present while preserving the heart of Jesus throughout the encounter in totality. So then, if this is the case, my question to you is, what beliefs have you been carrying about love up to this point that have supported the thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that have followed, that have really led you to believe that you are no longer available or qualified to experience the long-term love that others who have been connected to you have seemed to find outside of you. Because I'm actually willing to bet that somewhere along the line, you've come to a thought process that loving someone to such a degree is a waste of time if it doesn't end up in a romantic connection, marriage, longevity, long-term relationship, if something beneficial towards you doesn't come out of it. And I think that's more of a religious love. That's not a love that Christ gets down with. Now, hear me. Hear me. I hope you've stuck this far because this is important. In no way, shape, or form am I saying that you should now go and move into relationships and not be intentional. In no way, shape, or form am I saying that you should no longer love other people and not seek for some level of reciprocity in the sense of you ignoring the fact that you need to be loved. I'm not encouraging those things. It is good to look and be intentional about who you're dating, who you're spending time with, who you're connecting with. It is important to be intentional about your circle, about your relationships, about who has access to you. It is important to recognize that when such love is not being given back, that then we should not find ourselves forcing it, and that we should oftentimes find ourselves room to leave. Because if there's one thing God is not for, is others misusing and abusing his children. So we should not find ourselves remain connected to people who are continuously misusing and abusing you. This is real talk. What this is saying, though, is really just raising the question, what is the harm in just allowing the relationship as is to be present? What is wrong with the idea as you get to know people and connect with people, as you are in beginning stages of dating and get to knowing somebody, or you're just simply befriending people? What is wrong with the aspect of not needing this relationship to go all the way right now? What is wrong with this relationship just being present as it is and being okay if they aren't with you crossing the finish line? And that actually there is someone else who could be better suited for where you are, for where you're going, for the calling on your life. It just may not be this person to the degree you may want them. Can we still love them? Can we still be present? Can we still be available? Maybe it's not chasing after romance. Maybe it's not picking up every phone call and text message. But maybe, just maybe, it's us just being so full and at peace that we don't need it to get that way in order for us to feel like our time has been valued with said connection. Because what determines the value of the time spent in connections isn't the outcome you get. It's the love you preserved. And that's ultimately Christ. When Christ is preserved as a believer, trust me when I tell you, your time wasn't wasted, even if the outcome didn't come to fruition like you wanted it to. And we have to be willing to revisit some of these beliefs we have about love, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of us who are still carrying these wounds silently. Yes, we can talk about inner child wounds. We've done it. Yes, we can talk about so many other traumatic experiences, but a lot of us are still carrying wounds from breakups and repetitively failed relationships, either in our lives personally or around us, that has told us some type of story that I'm not meant to be connected or have a long-term love like I want, or like others who have been previously connected to me seem to find when they leave me. We have internalized this. This has become a belief, and we've coated it with spirituality, thinking it's a gift from God. No. Let's not go that far. Let's not go that far. What Jesus is offering us is an abundance, a life of abundance, a life of peace that is not predicated on us achieving or having every outcome we desire. When we get there, the love that we operate in moving forward is never been about what we receive. It's more about who we're planted in. He gives us the ability to love with an open hand and not cling. So when I can love with an open hand, you walk out as smooth as you walked in. And it doesn't mean I'm not hurt by it. It doesn't mean I may not be bothered by it. It doesn't mean that I may have wished it would have went differently. What it does mean is it doesn't get permission to change how I love moving forward. It actually gives me permission to love even greater because of the preservation made of Jesus himself, who is love. This is the goal, y'all. There's so much here, but I'm just seeing so many of us who think that you're just supposed to be the weapon. You're just supposed to be used. You're just supposed to be this catalyst to open others up, to unlock something in other people. And I don't think we realize how much more selfish that is, even in the same lane as thinking that I only need and only make time for people if this relationship is going in the direction I want it. I don't want to talk to you if you're not my kingdom spouse. I don't want to talk to you if you're not my man. I don't want to talk to you if you're not my wife. And we are missing actual legitimate connections we could be sharing with people from a place of love that is planted on the firm foundations left at the cross. We're missing it. We're missing it because we aren't slowing down. And because we think everything has to go in a specific lane and direction in order for us to find worth in the connection. And I believe 1 Corinthians 13 opens up a whole nother paradigm to love that has less to do with us getting what we want, more to do with us resting in who we are in him and knowing he's the greatest love. And because he's the greatest love, anything else is an addition and not necessary. We can still experience long-term love, y'all, even if it's not with the person that we may have wanted it from. And that's okay. We just have to reach a place where that is okay and we can actually let go and still love with an open hand moving forward instead of allowing who left us to change our hearts in the process. Because what it does is it teaches us that those experiences have more ruling over our lives than God's word. And it's got to be the other way around, where we filter those experiences through God's word in order to get realigned. I want to leave you with this analogy. When you go to Olive Garden and you eat their bread before the dinner comes out, if you're like me and you enjoy the bread, you're full. Okay. And you may not be too full, so you might eat a little bit of your plate. Maybe you eat just enough and you eat your whole plate. You eat the whole meal. Cool. Let's just rock with that. When you get to a place of being full from the dinner you eat, you don't look at the person next to you or across from you and eat off their plate. You don't ask for another round. You don't ask for a to-go plate. You don't ask for more bread. You don't ask for anything of that sort. Why is that? Because you're full. Because you're full. And because you're full, you understand that you don't need anything additionally. You don't need anything else to be satisfied. And this gives you the opportunity to what? Perhaps share food. Perhaps be willing to give more food, be more generous with food that may come out to give to other people because you're full and satisfied. This is what the love of Christ does for our lives. Gives us the ability to walk around full. And when we walk around full, y'all, we can still make connections with people. We can still be disappointed by people. We can still be intentional about where we want and who we want and where we want to go with relationships. And we can still put in energy. And sometimes it isn't met with the same outcome. It's not met with the same reciprocity. We come across people who aren't looking for the same things, who don't want longevity, who don't want marriage, who don't want the romance, who don't want the connection to the same level we do. And because we're full, we can be okay. We can be okay. And our satisfaction and contentment is not bothered. Our peace is not hindered because this person doesn't want to be in our lives. Nor do we have to revert to an extreme, believing that we're just supposed to be somebody who uplifts others at our own expense of experiencing love. What this does is simply gives us an opportunity to express God's love in a way where we learn that the peace that's actually available was never determined by the person becoming who we wanted them to be. It was never determined by the marriage we wanted. It was never determined by the dating relationship we wanted. It was never determined by the girl telling us that she wanted to take us as husbands. It was never determined by the man who you wanted to take as, your husband and you his wife. It was never made for that. Your peace was never determined by that. You're able to come into these spaces full. And when you come into these spaces full, you actually are able to walk in abundance and in overflow instead of being convinced that you're supposed to be the catalyst to other people's healing and longevity. This love goes so much deeper than what we've just expressed. But I really wanted to attack some of these beliefs because some of us are walking around here in a victim mentality and coding it in spiritual language. And enough is enough. And we have to learn to be okay with simply allowing relationships to be what they are and allow ourselves to be connected to people in the present. So that way, even if it doesn't reach a certain length and destination, we don't think it's a waste of time always, okay? And we don't allow those experiences to change how we love moving forward, because them staying or them leaving was never to be the determining factor of how we are called to love, because them staying or leaving was never supposed to be the foundation. And because it wasn't the foundation, it doesn't give you permission to now consider yourself as a catalyst to other people's healing and love experiences, thinking love is no longer available to you. I'm calling cap, and so should you. I hope this made sense. If it did, I want you to type "caught it" in the comment section below. And I want you to follow for more as we continue navigating through our healing and doing relationships the right way, which starts with us doing the healing work on ourselves first, which sometimes looks like realizing that even though relationships may not reach a full destination, it doesn't always mean the love failed, because it was never determined, the failure of the love was never determined on whether or not the relationship would make it all the way. Love fails when we do not preserve Christ in the midst of the love we are claiming to express to others. And even if it doesn't go all the way, we can still move full and not be robbed of our peace, or thinking that love in long-term format is no longer available to us, because it is, and it is today.